Hey there, you're listening to the EmpowerTech Podcast with Iyari Cevallos. This podcast is where we discuss all things tech and explore the growing ways in how we can leverage technology to lead smart, sustainable, and impactful lives. Looking forward to talking to Jamie today from Absolutely AI. He is in the creative industries and uses tech in innovative ways. I do want to talk to him about the photography competition that he was in the news and media about recently, where he was the winner of the photography competition, but he used an AI image, which was very controversial. So we're going to talk to him about that today. He also has a storytelling project that is quite unique, and he has experience speaking at TED Talks, SXSW. Looking forward to speaking to him today. Welcome, Jamie. Hi, Jamie. It's so great to have you here today.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I'm really excited about talking to you about some of the things you've been up to. So I am going to jump straight in. I know that you recently were on the news over a bit of a scandal on a photography competition.
Controversy.
If I can call it that. So, before AI really exploded, you could see that the creative industry was going up in flames. And I'm really interested in what made you enter the Digi Direct Photography competition. Your entry was the world's first AI image to win a photography competition. Why did you do it?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say that the creative industries are going up in flames. I'd more say that they're just being reshaped massively. So my background is in photography, filmmaking, content creation in general, starting with broadcast TV journalism. And I saw the writing was on the wall in terms of the way that AI is able, and it's very obvious now, we're able to create such incredible things using artificial intelligence. And I kind of recognized this before many people did and wanted to see if it was a bit of a turning point early last year where an AI image could pass off as a real photograph and not just fool the everyday person, but fool an actual photography judge. So I had the idea to see if we had reached this turning point. So I created an AI-generated image and entered this into a photography contest, and it ended up fooling the judges and winning. Of course, I came clean and returned the cash prize and everything, but it was more to see if this was an experiment that was successful and if it was a turning point. And I think unequivocally it definitely was, because we see now just the explosion of AI content and the fantastic things that we're able to create now that we just couldn't before.
Yeah. And look, I don't know if it's brave or if you just really wanted to see the process through. Like, I think, just talking about it is really important. We're seeing a lot of, court cases in the US in particular around copyright, with, AI exploding over there. And there's a lot of conversation these days around, the ethics. I really want to find out what sort of fallout you had once it was announced. What was that like for you?
Yeah, massive fallout. And you say, was it brave? My wife thinks it was stupid because the fallout was big and the controversy was big. And I got abuse from Brazil, I got abuse from Germany, from all over. And understandably, because like I say, my background is in this traditional content creation, this photography. So I feel exactly the same feelings that all photographers have felt when they've seen the rise of these AI tools. And I wanted to bring that to light because I think the worst thing would have been, and has been in some cases, where people are being tricked by AI and not knowing that there's a new way to create things that look hyper-realistic, that look like they are the real thing, like Donald Trump has really been arrested, like something that changes your perceptions possibly as well. So that was really why I did it. The abuse came thick and fast, but I dealt with that by educating, by talking to people, because like I say, I have the same feelings. I'm just looking at both the negative and the positive. We can create things that are absolutely incredible now. The tools that we have are so much more accessible. Cameras aren't cheap for a lot of people to buy. A lot of people have maybe disabilities and they haven't been able to access the creative tools that they've wanted to in the past. And this is a new avenue of creating.
Yeah, you're reminding me of the camera in the pocket. They're pretty powerful cameras that we have on our iPhones these days or other Androids. And I guess the use of video these days, if I think about 5, 6, 10 years ago, getting an image of the quality that you get now on a quick video that you want to take was pretty difficult unless you had a big budget, right? So it's becoming more and more accessible. And I suppose that example that you gave around, being more curious or not taking the images you see as real necessarily, I think that's a skill we're all going to have to start building, right? So, how do you even start to work out when something is, real and not? What would be your advice there?
It's a super tricky one. And unfortunately, there isn't an answer yet. These AI image generators, these AI video generators are getting to the point where they are literally indistinguishable from real photographs, where no one will be able to tell. It's not like their hands are off or they've got 6 fingers like they used to. Trust me, I've got 5.
I imagine you've seen the evolution of some of these.
Yeah. And that's exactly the point is, it's to the point now where you can't really tell the difference. And I think we all just need to start questioning what we see online. There's going to be some really bad things, sadly, that will happen. Misinformation is going to be off the chain. Scams are going to be off the chain. We're all going to have to start realizing that these tools exist and there's new ways to fool people. We're looking at some of the social media companies and they're putting out watermarks when it says this is created by AI. Well, at the moment, the platforms are relying on people ticking the box saying they have created this with AI. What about all the people that aren't ticking that box? So it's really on the users. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine, there's going to be a pool of people that just don't think it's important to do that. Without malice, and then you're going to have your bad players, right? So,
exactly.
That's going to be a long journey. And you reminded me that I saw some media recently around Meta and them trying to, provide some protections, especially for our more vulnerable age groups. I wonder how that's going to evolve over time in terms of what they put in place because, self-ticking, reporting is not necessarily going to be the catch-all. Does rely on people to be honest, and we all know that isn't always the case with social media, whether it be out of malice or not, right? You want to get content out quickly. You may not necessarily see why it's important to do those things.
Definitely. And I would say that artificial intelligence, when it comes to content creation, is the ultimate double-edged sword. We can create new things. We can tell new stories. It's so accessible to everyone. They're inherently easy to use. You just use very simple language to access these tools, as in speaking it out or typing out a cat on a hill, and it will generate an image or a video of a cat on a hill. Of course, we know that not everyone's going to play nice when all of these tools are so accessible. So we've already seen cases of, in the US, someone generated an image of a bombing somewhere. And, this got circulated on Twitter, on X, and got eventually picked up by some big news outlets and started getting retweeted.
Oh, no.
So it started gaining stream, to the point where the stock markets reacted and dropped. And then people realized this was an AI image, went back up. But that is a very tangible effect of one person who has some bad intentions being able to cause mass damage. So the weaponization of this tool is the bad side. The good side is, the accessibility to create things is the fantastic side that I see.
Okay, and let's talk about a little bit more about that. How do you see this, friction between human creativity and AI advances playing out from the more positive side?
Yeah, I see it being a fantastic tool for creatives. And I think creative people have the most to benefit from these tools. And the reason for that is I could never paint. I could never draw. But I have a creative mind, in my opinion anyway, where I want to bring things to life. Using these tools, I'm able to do that in a way that I just couldn't before. With my camera, I used to be able to go out and shoot them. But now I am able to extend myself, extend my creativity beyond what I can physically do with my hands, with my location, with my education in a lot of ways. I can use AI to think about different artistic methods and bring that into, creating something new that hasn't really been done before. Yes, there's a lot of ethics that are tied into this. A lot of these AI models didn't ask permission to be used to train on artists' work. So yes, the ethical side is a huge concern, but the potential is also huge as well. I don't think it's just one or the other. I think it is both. That this is the future of content creation. It is the future of art. It is the future of music. But how we got here is in a lot of ways very questionable. I am not denying that 100%.
We're going to have to break a few more eggs, right, before we have our beautiful omelette. I want to understand a little bit more because I know that there's probably some listeners out there wondering, well, what sorts of tools are available at the moment? We know that, technology moves super quickly and there might be some more tools in the future, but what are the sorts of things that people can have access to now?
Yeah, broadly speaking, so just as a bit of background, absolutely AI, we use artificial intelligence creative tools to create different kinds of content. So be it videos, we're working on a proper documentary at the moment, social media imaging, advertising, promotions, things like that. So all the creative kind of content. AI is really moving fast into this space, which is funny because we thought the human arts would never be touched by the mechanical arts, by AI, but it has, been one of the first. So what people can do now is create images. They can create music. They can create videos. And what I mean by that is literally typing out what you'd like to see, like to hear, and it will create that for you in a really realistic, in a really human way. What we've seen over the last 18 months is the explosion of the image generators, and that's in all artistic styles pretty much. So you can type in Sydney Opera House in the style of Salvador Dali or, whoever it might be, and it will create that for you. But over the last 6 months, more recently, which is super exciting, we've seen the rise of the AI video generators. And that's the same thing, but we're able to type in Batman running down the Sydney Opera House in the style of Salvador Dali. And it will tie in all these things together in a way that it's incredible the way that these things understand physics. It understands lighting, the way that we actually perceive things, because it's been trained on all of the videos, all of the, movies, all of the things that we have had access to and the way that we formulate our minds, it's actually been trained on as well. So they're some of the tools that are out now, and it's the same for music. All the creative tools that are coming out now, pretty incredible.
I'm just imagining opening a meeting in the corporate office with Batman running over the Opera House and really getting the leadership team excited about the workshop that they're about to sit in. Like, how amazing would that be with like branding and all sorts of things? Are you sort of seeing that full kind of application at the moment?
It's a great question. It's still very much a workflow. So that's similar to what we do. We use up to 20 different tools, and you'd never know it because at the end it's a seamless kind of video or a seamless image or music, whatever it is. But right now there's little sections, platforms that do little bits well. So one AI image generator might not do images that great, but they might do text well. So we might take that text and then add that onto an image from a different platform. Same with the videos. So the end-to-end product still isn't there, no way. But it is there if you want to stitch them all together and you have the knowledge. But that's something I'd also like to nail down as well, is it takes a creative person to really use these tools, get the most out of them. If you sit there, I've got lots of mates who sit there in front of a AI image generating tool, type in something, and then they're just out of ideas. They don't know what to create. But if you want to explore what you can create and think about the different ways that you can put your brand into these different scenes or your business, that's where it becomes exciting and we can be beyond our limitations in a number of ways.
So I guess this comes back to your comment earlier about creatives in this space already are the ones that are going to benefit the most, right? Because they think about, the process and the stitching together and how that's going to look as an end product, whereas someone that might not be as creative and is in a different field might struggle with those pieces. And may be able to generate a lovely cat video for a post, but not necessarily use it in the way that you're describing in terms of that full gambit of creative output and media that you could do, right?
Definitely, definitely. And I think that's why there's always going to be room for the human, and the human is still driving these tools. The human element, it'll fall down without the human element. Because the human needs to understand, if we talk about businesses, the human needs to understand the business. They need to understand the business's audience, who they're trying to appeal to, the messaging, the goal. You need to understand all these things and then pair that with this tool to create something fantastic. That's why it's not just a plug in and play or plug in and it's just an automatic thing that happens. It's really not. You do need the human creativity to create something really nice.
Yeah, the machine doesn't get the nuances, right, between one business and another, a spread of audience in one business compared to another. So, I totally hear and see that. You can become what they're calling a prompt engineer. But that's really to get the right output. You've got to be understanding what you're trying to get out of it and have that creative imagination or vision to then be able to pair the tool and what you're searching for, I guess is what you're saying, right, Jamie?
100%. And that's why the human element isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I don't want to be out of a job. So a lot of people I speak to don't necessarily get how AI is or isn't creative. So I think you've gone into a little bit of detail around that, and we've talked about prompting. Can you talk about what the tech is doing? So we know that it scrapes, but has it got a bank of things that it's calling upon? How does the technical bit work?
Yeah, the way I like to explain it is it's quite similar to the way our own minds work, particularly when we're kids. So if you take what age would you learn to draw? I don't know.
7
Let's
or
say
8.
you're 6 years old.
Yeah,
7
maybe
or 8.
younger.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
My daughter's 1 and she's done a painting. I wouldn't say it's
Is
art
it recognizable?
Yet,
Did you need any prompting to know what it was?
Yeah. Let's say a 7-year-old kid. So the way that a 7-year-old kid learns to draw something like a chair, an everyday object like a chair, how that kid will learn to draw a chair is they see lots and lots of different chairs. They understand what a chair does, how it functions. So it's got 4 legs, it's got a base, then it's got a back. But there can be lots of different chairs. There can be a throne, there can be an office chair, there can be a car seat, there can be a bench. Once you understand that, you can start to draw your own chairs, and you can put the chair on Mars. You can put the chair made out of timber, made out of synthetic material in lots of different colors. You can then take that knowledge of how a chair functions and create something completely new. That's the same way that these AI models work. They have seen a whole heap of different images of chairs, of people, of the Eiffel Tower. And once it understands that, it can create something entirely new. So the way that it works is it's not taking lots of little bits from all these different images or all these different videos that it's been trained on. It's actually learnt what these objects are, and then it's creating something new off them. That's why it gets a bit sticky and it's not so clear cut with copyright and things like that. Because yes, you would not be able to create without the training data sets. You would not be able to create unless you had looked at a photographer's image of the Eiffel Tower. But the Eiffel Tower that AI is creating is not the same Eiffel Tower that you've taken a photo of. It's just learnt what it looks like. That's why it's exciting. That's why it's very different.
And I hear that these models, to get really good, need a lot of data. My one of the things that I've been really listening to is, who has rights over that data? And I think you touched on it there in terms of data sets. But then also, if they are generating something new, are they infringing on those copyrights? So you've touched on both of those things there. In terms of where Australia's at with that, do you know how we're managing those sorts of questions at the moment in the creative industry?
Yeah, it's a massive topic. Copyright, trademarking, it's a massive discussion, and it hasn't been tested yet in court, or tested enough in court for us to have a clear-cut way. What we do is we create content for clients using these tools, but the way that the legal system is set up in Australia around copyright and IP, if we make more and more edits to this piece of work, we're actually redefining it more and more and putting it more in our space, essentially. So the more that a human is interacting with this, so we have an AI image, we don't just take the base image, we go away and we edit it, we do lots of different things, we might add photos to it that we've taken, changing it in lots of different ways. So it's becoming more and more a unique piece of work. That's not to say that the initial output isn't a unique piece of work. It definitely is. You won't get the same AI output twice. You never will. It's always going to be unique. But if you add more and more layers to that with the human element, then it's covered more and more soundly under the way that the law works. But with all of that said, it's still not a tried and tested space in terms of how copyright's sitting.
Yeah, there's a lot of grey in what you just described.
No. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So this is going to come, but these things do move quite slowly. But we do know that, a lot of these platforms in the US, the actual, the Mid-Journeys, the stable, a few different models that are out there, they are going to be tested in court, and they're being taken through court at the moment. More to do with how they've got the data, I would say, than how they're actually creating the new things, as in whose work have they taken to train this, because a lot of people didn't agree to have their work, be used by these models. But it is something that's going to be tested, over and over again pretty soon.
Okay. I think the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jamie, was your recent TED Talk on creative AI revolution. You talked about the next generation of storytellers, and I'm really interested in this work that you're doing. Are you able to talk about breaking down barriers and that work that you're doing around storytelling?
Yeah, storytelling's something that I've been super passionate about for a long time. So I started my career as a journalist, as a TV journo up here in Queensland, and really fell in love with how stories can influence people, can engage people, can educate people. And it's just fun to tell these stories, essentially. What these tools are able to do now is tell these stories in different ways. So an example of that is we've worked with the Eureka Stockade organisation. They're called Eureka Australia, based down in Victoria. So for people who don't know, the Eureka Stockade was one of Australia's most defining moments. It was a battle that took place in Victoria in the 1800s, 1850s, and there were no cameras around to capture that. And it's a story that isn't as widely known as it probably should be. So we've partnered with them at Absolutely AI to create an image series and a documentary recreating what it was like. So we worked with their historians to tell this story, to visualize this story in an accurate way, but also in a super engaging way. So it looks like a Hollywood movie. But Hollywood hasn't been knocking on the door to tell this story, which would make it more widely known, like Braveheart, and even if it was like a Braveheart, it probably wouldn't be accurate. They'd take liberties and things like that. So we've done it in an engaging way, but also an accurate way, in the hopes that we can get this out into museums, in the hopes that we can get this into the education system. So people can be educated, can be engaged and informed in a way that you couldn't do with what currently exists, which is a few paintings that were done, in the 1800s. Yes, they're accurate and they're representations, but they're not exactly engaging for the modern audience. So we're using these tools to tell these stories in different ways now.
That's amazing. I mean, I would. I mean, the only other way, like you said, to do that sort of recreation would be, I guess, in a movie, and that takes a big budget. And then I think, you know, in that style of production, you might not be able to stick to the facts, right? Because movies need to generate income, and sometimes it's about how entertaining they are as opposed to how accurate they are to the true story. So that is an amazing way to bring some of that history to life. I imagine also that at some point you might be able to do that with some of our Indigenous stories, because again, you know, knowing that they don't necessarily have structures like the Europeans have in their history or architecture, and also archaeology, like some of the, you know, South American history tellers can point to and touch and relive. What do you think about that space?
Yeah, I love that you bring that up, because that's a side that I'm really passionate about. The First Nations storytelling, it's going to be the next big project that we're actually working on now. We're just looking at the right way to do it. In the same way with the Eureka Stockade story, there are sensitivities. You want to be accurate, you know, things that deserve to be told the right way. Because this is new technology, we just want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. But I 100% agree. There's so many fantastic stories, particularly First Nations, Indigenous stories, that deserve to be told, and told in an engaging way, in an accurate way as well. And we're looking at different ways to do that. So the creation is the one side, but also the distribution is the other side. So social media is a fantastic distribution tool. We can also use AI to translate different languages. So having these stories told, you know, into a different language that may be in Africa, or, you know, why not get these stories more widely known than just Australia? I think that there's the opportunity to tell these stories, and there's stories all around us that deserve more recognition, that haven't got the recognition in the past, and we can use technology to really do that.
And in terms of, you know, how you've been able to get this off the ground, Jamie, I would really I'm interested, because I think some of our listeners will be interested in how they might be able to support something like this, because I think it's really important. It covers so many different aspects of some of the challenges that we have today around education, around awareness, around, you know, breaking down some of those biases that we have. I know that the truth telling is happening at the moment. You know, what support are you looking for? Could we give to projects like this?
Yeah, we would love people to get involved. So we're currently developing our platform and building out the team around this side. But if you'd like to head to absolutelyai.com.au, reach out to us. We're looking for everything from investment to, you know, people who have stories that they'd like to share, or feel like that need more recognition, and can really make an impact. Because, you know, we're all quite divided at the moment, and it seems like we're all getting a bit more divided. There's great stories all around us, even if it's local stories, be it in Brisbane, be it in small regional towns in Sydney, that haven't been told, that deserve recognition. And it will really help people to relate to each other, to relate to where they're from. It'll do a lot of good. So I would really love people to get in. Exactly. So we need people with stories. We need investment. We need all sorts. We just want people to come on this journey with us, and to see where it goes, because it's a needed thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And I think you also mentioned the different skills that are on these projects, right? So you mentioned historians, and then you've got the technical. You know, how does that all work?
Yeah, it's funny. So for the Eureka story, and he's one of our great researchers and historians we've got, his name is Jim Brown. And Jim Brown was a journalist for decades, 40, 50 years. And he's in his 70s, 80s now. Fantastic guy, but really dedicated to that researching side. And he loves nothing more than getting into the juicy aspects of those historical stories, because they're important. So we need the people who have the filmmaking skills, the creative skills, can work with the technical guys, can work with the researchers to create something that is engaging and accurate. I think that those people are so needed now more than ever because we've got the tools to be able to tell these stories and create different things now. We just need the people with the knowledge to tell things the right way. And that's where maybe the older historians, the older researchers, or people who have dedicated their lives to a very specific thing should be able to share that knowledge with people who can get that story out to a wider audience. Because that's been tough in the past. I know if you've been doing your PhD or you've got a lot of knowledge on something and, you've been screaming it to the rooftops, but you haven't had the right distribution channels to get it out there, well, teaming up with a team of storytellers who can help you to tell it in the right way can make such a big impact. That's another thing with the platform that we're making is there will be a call to action link. So at the end, you watch this fantastic video and then it's learn more about this particular thing or donate to this particular church or this particular organization here if this has moved you, and making it a kind of pay it forward situation. So, yeah, it's kind of this groundswell of movement, I think, is super exciting.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I really am looking forward to seeing some of those projects. I think it's really impactful when you see and watch something that generates, emotions and then pairing that with a call to action. That's brilliant. I think that's fantastic work that you're doing. Now, Jamie, it's really exciting to hear some of these projects that you're doing. And you're in this fabulous industry. You've got a business running and some projects that are running for good. So I love all of the work that you're doing and the boundaries that you're pushing. I want to hear about what you think is coming at us. So what are the trends that you think people should watch out for in this space?
Or any particular areas? I could go on and on. Any particular areas?
Why don't you start with creative? Can you where are we heading with videos or, AI in that space? I mean, because as soon as you start talking about some of these things, I start thinking about, virtual reality and this whole metaverse space. It feels like we're getting closer and closer. But from your perspective in that creative space, what do you think the things are that we should keep an eye out for that you think are pretty amazing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first one, and we will see this very soon. So I'm going to be running an AI video course very soon. And one of the challenges that we've set is for people to create the first feature-length AI film created entirely by one person. So we will start to see these happen. Instead of a team of, how many people does it take to create a Hollywood film?
I don't know.
100,000? A lot. Instead of having that, you will start seeing these solo creators creating feature-length movies. And some of these will be massive, massive hits.
Wow.
Because they will have all of the elements of a good story. They will have all the technical qualities. They'll have the audio. They'll have everything that makes you feel those emotions.
That sounds pretty disruptive to the Hollywood movie industry in particular.
Yeah, and it is. All of the stuff that we are talking about, AI is disruptive. AI, you can't get away from the fact that AI is disruptive in whatever we're applying it to. There is good, there is bad, and I'm more than happy to talk about the bad, but from the storytelling side, I would love nothing more. I'm just thinking back to me, Jamie, as a kid, would love nothing more than creating my own movie that was based on something that I deeply cared about and could resonate with people. That's something that we're going to see soon is the feature-length films created by a very small team, if not one person. We're also seeing video clips happening with that now, but on a smaller scale. The next one is music. So music is, last year was AI imagery. This year it's the year of AI video. Next year it's the year of AI music. And whether people take to it, whether people care it's created by AI, these are big questions. But we're thinking now, what about in 10 years' time when it's not, the novelty's worn off and they are just genuinely good songs? They are just genuinely good movies. Will we care that it's created by AI? I don't know. Everyone has a different, everyone has a different kind of level there. But we are going to see in the creative industries everything be disrupted. And more broadly, we're going to see it everywhere.
Who was it that made that? I did hear about that song that sounded like an artist. And it was being touted as a bit of a gimmick at the time. It didn't feel like people were taking it that seriously.
Yeah, the Drake song.
Yeah, that's the one.
And that's the thing. It did sound just like Drake. The lyric, I'm a Drake fan. Did have Drake rhythm to it. It did sound like Drake. It could have been a Drake song. It was quite catchy. I wouldn't say it was a great song, but it was a catchy song. I was thinking about it when I was going to sleep at night after listening to it. So it did its job.
Well, it had an impact on you, Jamie.
The interesting thing about that one, say that wins a Grammy. Say it's the best song ever created. It wins a Grammy. Who gets up to accept the award? I mean, technically, it's based on Drake. It's all of Drake's, tone. It's Drake's lyrics. It's his everything. It's based on him. But he didn't create it. He didn't do a thing. Not for this particular song. So it's an interesting one there, and we're going to see more and more of that happening. And I don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder too. I think, there's always going to be people that do it for fun, people that want to take it, to the next level. And then, obviously the bad players, we can never forget about those.
Yeah, 100%. But also something interesting that hasn't been done yet is, and we will see this soon, and it'll be a multi-billion-dollar idea, so don't steal it, please.
You heard it here first.
Is taking the best bits of popular artists and creating an entirely new artist. So what, at its base level, what makes Taylor Swift so successful in her music? Take that. Take Drake's success base level, whatever that is. Is it his tone? Is it the way he says things? Is it his actual voice? Take those things, combine that into a new artist. So we're going to see that happen a lot soon, is the rise of these mashups and how much authority, how much ownership do you have over a certain way that you say things, or how much ownership do you have over the way you present your lyrics? It's not exactly your lyrics, but it's based off your lyrics.
Yeah.
So it's super murky, super great.
Yes, really great. I mean, especially given that we're still hearing about, things like Taylor Swift taking ownership over her music and re-recording so that she is able to do that more, let alone, this level of mashup, as you call it. Lots of grey in there. So any last call-outs on what to watch out for, Jamie?
I would just say watch out for a complete reshaping of everything that you know.
Don't get scared, anyone.
No, I on a serious note, I would just say, yeah, we're living in a super exciting time, and it's a time for people to, in my opinion, embrace their creativity. If you've always wanted to create a song, even if it's just something that speaks to you on a personal level, go and do that. There are tools that can do that now really easily. Same for imagery. If you'd like to create an image of your cat jumping over the moon in a funny way that you'd like to put on your wall, you can go and do that. It speaks to you on a personal level. Fantastic. You haven't been able to draw it in the past. You can create it now with these different tools. There are different ways to tap into your creativity that I think is super exciting.
Fantastic. And just to wrap us up, you've touched on some things that people can practically do in terms of empowering themselves in this space. Is your suggestion to keep going, finding the tools, see how they work? Would that be your top tips around that?
Yeah, I think staying open to what's available at the very least, so nothing creeps up on you and you're fooled by anything. So keep across, even more broadly speaking, the creative tools that are out there, or at least follow some people like myself or whoever's in the space who are testing out these different tools so you can see what's possible. Because once you're informed, you can make your own mind up about whether it's good or bad. That's completely fine. It's different for everyone. But you need to be informed first about what's out there and what's possible, or else it'll come back to bite you, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. So what I heard there, Jamie, is get yourself informed, whether it's getting on Google and finding those tools and seeing what's possible now and potentially, experimenting. If you have that inclination of being creative, there's more for you to be able to see some of those things, come to reality. And follow someone like Jamie. He is testing these things, these tools that come out, these concepts, and he will keep you informed. I've definitely been following you, Jamie, so really good top tip there. look, we're going to wrap up. I think the last thing I want to ask for any parents listening, what would you advise them to do? Because I know that kids, with their infinite imagination are definitely creating things and seeing things on the internet. What would you advise them to do?
That's a massive question. I have a 1-year-old daughter. She's not quite ready to be at that level yet. But in all seriousness, it is a tricky one. I would advise parents to inform themselves first, like I say, of what is possible, and then they can pass on that learnings. Because we're all going through this at the moment. I think we learnt a lot of lessons with the rise of social media and the way that parents approach that for their kids now. The next big challenge is artificial intelligence and the content that we're all consuming. I think learn what is possible to be created. Jump on Twitter, jump on LinkedIn, follow some AI people who are playing around with these tools. And once you know what's possible, you can set those own boundaries, because the content generation machine is only going to get more and more and more. Crazy stat that I saw is by the end of next year, up to 80% of content may be AI generated or AI assisted. So it's happening now. Finding out what's possible, how realistic stuff is, showing that to your kids, saying don't get fooled by things or start to question things a bit more. That's going to be really important.
Yeah, I think I can imagine myself sitting down with my 7-year-old and going, hey, look how real this is. This isn't actually real. How do we work out what we're looking at is real when you're not quite sure, and being a bit more discerning. Definitely some skills that we're going to have to start teaching the younger generation to help them be a bit more curious and question what they're seeing. So thank you for that tip, Jamie. And that's a wrap. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. Do keep in mind that this is a podcast for informational purposes, and all we're really doing is sharing our opinions on things that matter to us. With that being said, if you liked what you heard and want to continue supporting us, share this podcast with your network to help us grow and bring on even more guests. Until next time, this is Iyari from EmpowerTech, signing off.